Hello and welcome to The Stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation featuring guests who reject the status quo in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm a content director and journalist specializing in water.
And I'm Sarni, a water strategy, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And today we are thrilled to be joined by Lisa Hook, who is the Senior Manager for Environmental and Product Sustainability within Gap Inc. Lisa, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. How are you doing?
Thanks so much. So happy to be here.
So, Lisa, your origin story, it wasn't just when you crossed the states in protest of moving to San Diego. You actually had something when you lived outside of the US. So why don't you give us a kind of brief explanation on that?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. In a previous life and a background of my career, I spent time working in the international development sector, and one of my assignments was to live in Cambodia for 6 months, where I worked on supporting fishing and farming communities along the Mekong River. And it was there that I really saw, understood, and felt the very real dependence that millions of people have for these major rivers globally, and of course the Mekong specifically. About also the impacts from climate change, my role there was to understand how climate change was impacting these communities' livelihoods related to natural resources, how water is an underpinning to their success, and that the Mekong River Delta, its stems, its origins are in the Himalaya mountains, where snowpack is decreasing, and that disrupts the natural water cycle of these communities and their ability to provide for their families. And it's just a very real lived reality for so many people across the world that it's such a critical issue to address. And that was a very profound experience interviewing farmers and fisher people who are saying, this is impacting me. I don't know when the rains are coming. I don't know how these things are projected to change, but I know that they're changing. And I'm trying to strive to support my family. Those were very real conversations that influenced my dedication to this space on climate and water. The other thing that really kind of hooked me further, or in addition to this space, is I studied international relations in college, and I was so fascinated by the way that our world was globalizing and how multinational corporations were having untold impact half a world away as they were looking to take advantage of trade opportunities. But I had a real challenge in one of the main streams of the study called economics. It was not my go-to subject, but what really helped turn the page for me in understanding economics was when we learned about the idea of externalities, or how when industry is producing goods, some of the impacts are not captured in the actual cost of production or the goods, but they do impact external stakeholders. And that does come to life through water issues like water use, water pollution. And it was with that kind of unlock and understanding that led me to focus on a career in starting out in ESG, analyzing companies based off of their environmental and social governance performance for investors. And really, how do we start to capture the value that these natural resources play in our industry and in our society?
Well, Lisa, it was good to see you in fine form at the Stockholm World Water Week last week. Lots of great content and sessions. One I sat in on moving from water stewardship to strategy. It'd be great to kind of kickstart and just get your feedback about taking part in the World Water Week and some of the dialogue and conversations you had, and anything that kind of stood out for you of what you learned.
Yeah, absolutely. World Water Week is a big week for us in the water space, and this year, like last, it was a little different, being hosted online, but I think it added a lot of opportunity for really the global community of folks interested in water to join in and participate in the dialogue. And that especially included a focus that Will, you and I collaborated on a session focused on moving from corporate water stewardship to water strategy, which is, from my perspective, a really exciting and fresh opportunity to look at water as a value driver for businesses. And so we touched upon that and had a nice conversation with other corporate representatives from AB and Bev and WWF, as well as Agua representative. You know what? I'm misspeaking. I don't want to misspeak, but former water lead for Microsoft, now advising on various water issues. But to get to the point, corporate water stewardship being one facet of water, I think the whole aspect of World Water Week as a whole demonstrates the multifaceted aspects that water brings, and really helps to connect us all. So having a view where Gap Inc. participated in and lent our voice, not only on corporate water stewardship strategy, but on how building community water resilience helps to build this resilience, how supporting women with water access also helps to strengthen their economic empowerment. And the importance of water stewardship at a site level and looking at the context in which water is taking place. So all in all to say is I was very energized by World Water Week, despite a number of sessions on Zoom, online, and I admitted to myself that I love to nerd out on water, and that's okay.
Like a full week plus of water stuff. You brought up a really good point in the beginning about, the virtual format really providing greater access to participants. I think it's pretty universal, as much as people miss the in-person dimension. Going forward, the ability to be there, but also open it up to a wider group is pretty powerful. It's sort of democratizing access to, thought leadership and innovation, and checking in with, all the various moving parts in the world. And I thought the conversation was fun and, of course, lively. I mean, we had, the right folks in the, virtual room, so to speak, that don't have opinions and are really kind of pushing the dialogue. So, for me, it was of great value and a lot of fun. And I think that's sort of the ideal combination.
Great. Yeah, I tuned in. It was in the evening time, the session, Will, that you did hosting with Lisa and, like you say, Alexis from WWF, Samantha Farback from AB and Bev, Paul from formerly Microsoft. It was interesting to kind of hear about framing water as I did a tweet, actually. It was, water needs to be framed as creating value and linked to business strategy, not risk, from Will Sarni and Alexis Morgan. And the other part, customers are looking for optimism around water and climate, from Sammy at AB and Bev. Those were two of my very pithy takeaways from the session. But I think you're right. It was a great discussion, really energetic, and also good to hear about kind of evolving from stewardship to strategy.
Yeah, I think there's always, when I push this thinking a bit, there's a little bit of a pushback that, oh, you're not saying we're going to abandon stewardship. And, that actually came out pretty clearly during our session, that it's not one or the other. It's building on stewardship, not abandoning stewardship, but really, Lisa doing some of the things that, Gap Inc. is doing right now, of, innovation and women in water, that creates business value, but also value to society and, a range of stakeholders. So good discussion. It's pretty lively. Hopefully we sort of advance the ball, as they say. I'm not sure if they say that in the UK, Tom, but here they do.
What was the phrase? Advance the ball. I think
no.
Move the ball forward, move the discussion forward. But I like it. We can go with advance the ball. I think it works.
All right, good.
And Will, one thing that stuck with me from that session too was actually your quote of Alexis's from WWF around water stewardship catalyzes engagement, but strategy catalyzes investment. And I think it's really powerful.
So Lisa, now that you love that quote, it was really my quote that he used,
yes.
as opposed to me using his quote. I did give, contribution, but we were at a IWA IDB event in Ecuador a few years ago, and we were talking about the issue of stewardship to strategy. And I think I might have been working on one of my slides, and he's sitting next to me and he said, well, what about this? And it was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. So, I love it. I think, Alexis really nailed it in a very concise way in terms of, how do we have an impact? And, it takes investment.
So for, I think, for people perhaps not tuning into that session and to take a step back, Lisa, it'd be great to just get some context of, as a clothing giant, you could be called, Gap Inc., Gap within Gap Inc. What does water mean to your company? Tell us through where you see the innovation part of the puzzle, and also there's some partnerships you're doing in India in terms of water recycling. But yeah, just give us some sort of context on water within Gap.
Yeah, happy to. And first for context around why apparel and water, the industry as a whole depends on water to make clothes. Without water, we cannot make clothes. It's heavily reliant. Everything from the growing of cotton to manufacturing and dyeing textiles, and even in ultimately how customers launder and care for their products. So there's a large water footprint. In the production alone, we estimate it takes about 1,000 liters of water to produce one pair of jeans. So if you think about the number of jeans that are in your closet right now and how much water that's using, it is significant. And often the places, importantly, where product is made and sourced from face high water stress. And that's exacerbated by climate change. So it is a very material issue to the apparel sector, and especially to Gap Inc. And so what we're doing about that are a few things, like you mentioned, including around innovating how textiles are manufactured, to start to look at how do we reduce the water use in that process, and even look at decoupling that dependence on water from the production process. So we are partnering with one of our key fabric producers, Arvin Limited, to develop an innovation center on water stewardship, specifically, that we want to catalyze new technologies and innovations, starting in India, but really open to the whole manufacturing sector. And this will be open source so that we can really spread the ideas and opportunities. This isn't Gap Inc. alone, but truly a industry-wide initiative. So we're really excited about how that is coming to life. And then the other aspect is recognizing the role of partnerships. Water really connects us all, and we can't solve these problems alone. We need to do it together. One big way we're doing that is through our public-private partnership with the U.S. Agency for International Development. It's a $32 million 6-year program that aims to empower 2 million people with drinking water access and sanitation by 2023. And we're doing this in India in cotton growing and textile manufacturing communities through a number of our NGO partners, CARE, WaterAid, Water.org, and the Institute for Sustainable Communities. And really the opportunity with this program and the way that is that we are building resilience for water with these communities, with women as the forefront for that catalyzing change agent, which in turn helps strengthen our business and our value chain in the face of climate change and how and where we're sourcing cotton and manufacturing these textiles. So really taking a holistic look at the system that is underpinning water resources that we share.
Yeah, so Lisa, it's interesting you mentioned about, did you say open source innovation kind of hub in India? So the idea is you can test water technologies and developments that will benefit the apparel supply chain outside of gaps. That's the idea, right? So new innovations can come to your center. I think that's quite an interesting development, because I actually looked into it beforehand, and they're taking municipal wastewater, recycling it, and then using it in the process. So it's kind of like a closed loop industry meets utility innovation hub, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, just to call out again and highlight that we can't do this alone. It is taking that municipal water as an input into the production process. And that requires partnership with local government, with communities, and in addition to the rest of the sector. So very much grounded in how we can come together, identified our comparative value adds in the water space to make potentially exponential, especially in a highly water stressed place like India.
Fantastic. I think, Will, you always talk about the public sector having scale, but the private sector and startups having the ability to move and be nimble quite quickly. So this kind of brings all of that together, right? With the purpose of improving water use locally.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the private sector really has a unique position sitting, between entrepreneurs that have speed but no scale, and then the public sector that has scale, but, not to offend anybody, but not a whole lot of speed. I mean, we're certainly seeing that in the American West. And the private sector has the ability to really sort of navigate between the two in terms of, we want to do something fast, so we partner, just as the Gap is doing on technology innovation, and then we can scale it, globally through, enterprise level, but also individual brands. So I don't know, to me, it's a very powerful stakeholder group that has the ability to be flexible and nimble in ways that perhaps some of the other stakeholders don't.
And I guess the idea, Lisa, from this innovation lab hub center, you can take some of those solutions developed and deploy them in other manufacturing sites outside of India, right? So what's learned in that one location, potentially on all your different locations, you can replicate and move it around.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're actually constructing an entire center for interested stakeholders and the industry to come, learn, foster those innovations, and then take them back to their manufacturing locations. And really, the other thing I want to touch upon is that the focus on innovation is really bringing out that excitement around solutions orientation for how can we solve this global water challenge, not only understanding that it's a risk, it's really challenging, there's a lot of negative impacts, but then what do we do about it? And that there are options and there are solutions, and that we can creatively innovate to help us together solve this problem.
I'm halfway through this book, Let My People Go Surfing by Yvonne Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia. Really interesting guy, and there's some great, shouldn't be bending over the pages, I know it's sacrilege on books, but parts where he was talking about water and environment, obviously a founding father of kind of sustainable clothing in a way, but there was a really interesting section where it's not just the responsibility of the manufacturer within the footprint of that clothing item. But obviously after that piece of clothing's been sold is where there's a huge part of kind of water energy use in terms of washing the clothes, caring for them. So actually the responsibility of a company of your scale is as well as informing consumers on how to best use their clothes after the point of sale, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where a large opportunity lies in terms of the role that the private sector and a company like Gap Inc. can play in terms of connecting the dots. A lot of water challenges, like I mentioned, especially where product is produced, take place on another side of the globe, far away from home, and yet water challenges are a reality for many folks, and here domestically as well. I mean, we're seeing it with droughts in California, which lead to terrible wildfires. We're also seeing it in increased storms and flooding events here as well. And then not to mention the very large scale infrastructure problem that we have related to clean drinking water, access to water, right here at home. And so the opportunity to connect the dots between what we can do about this problem and how we can all play a part to be a part of the solution is very exciting and a strong platform to help inform where we can go with this as a society. We're working on engaging our employees first and foremost and educating them about these sustainability challenges and solutions. And it raises awareness. It generates an appreciation for the water that we do have and how we each value water in different ways, whether it's having your water bottle filled with clean, fresh water to hydrate your exercise, or to go swimming or fishing, and really kind of brings that appreciation to life. So we're making strides, and there's a lot more that we can do, and I hope to see a lot more of that in the future.
Lisa, I thought you were going to say rowing. You like teed it up really nicely.
Will, I'm not going to take rowing away from you. That was a silver platter for you. I'm glad you took it.
We are going to get you rowing. Absolutely. And mobilize the rowing community to do more with water. So not just for the sake of rowing, but, engagement on these issues.
Do you row, Lisa, or is this Will trying to get you to row? I need to fill in the gaps.
I did participate in a very competitive dorm crew rowing team in college.
Oh, okay.
It was a beautiful experience. Will, you're out on the water early morning and a flat lake, and it's certainly like an immediate way to appreciate your water resources right there. But I need to get back into it. And frankly, Will, from our conversations, I admit I have started to research where my local rowing club is.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are a rower. You've just had a lapse. You're getting back into it. And now, Lisa, our goal is to get Tom into rowing.
All right.
Still, I don't have a university rowing experience, but I have a lot of gym rowing experience, like inside a room rowing. I know it's not the same, but we're convinced that one day we're going to try and do a version of the stream on the water. Will has told me about the balancing going on, how it might not be the best idea because of capsizing, but if you row, I'll row, and then we'll make something happen in the water. Yeah,
that sounds great. And we can get Alexis involved because we've been, I want to say, collaborating with WWF and their work with World Rowing. So, it all sort of rolls together very nicely. There we go, Lisa. You're a rower, and now we got to get the guy on the top here to give it a go.
We'll try. But I think to kind of segue from what you're saying, Lisa, it's about making water fun, right? You could say, and that's
Absolutely.
like whether you're rowing on the water, walking by the water, paddle boarding, which I do, not rowing. It's about making it fun for your employees and your community, right? So Talk us through that. Talk us through perhaps the kind of psychology, because some people immediately might not see the fun in water. How do you change that mindset?
Well, I think it's first drawing that connection around the multifaceted nature of water. Like I kind of mentioned how that came to life at World Water Week. At an individual level too, if you took one day of your life and paid attention to all the different ways you are connecting with water, you realize it's everywhere. And you realize that it's really something to appreciate and cherish as an aspect that enables us to live our best lives. And that's everywhere, again, from the drinking water that you use to make your coffee, the water that goes into the food that you eat, and those kind of basic necessities and needs, as well as to just enjoyment and what, Will and I, we've talked about that spiritual, emotional connection, whether you're on the lake or swimming and really kind of feeling energized. There's so much that water provides, in addition to how it fuels and supports our natural environment, our economy, our society.
Right. Yeah, I think that spiritual element is really, there's a book by Dr. Nicholas Wallace called Blue Mind around the sort of connection that we have as people and how civilizations have grown around water. But I think that's really interesting if you can tap into people's spiritual connection with water and then they suddenly value it and then they see it as fun. There's a lot to be said for that. Perhaps, Will, do you find rowing, you find the Blue Mind?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I want to just touch on rowing one more time, but these are just a bunch of rowers for the most part. They are laser focused on going out and rowing. And what has happened over the past year is that I brought in this whole thing about connecting to WWF and conservation and quality of water in the reservoir and how we can actively be engaged in solving water. So, Lisa, to your point, it's, tapping into how people connect to water and giving them the opportunity to see that, it's much more complex and they have a role to play in solving water. And it actually reminds me of, Gap Inc.'s opportunity with all of your brands. I mean, your connectivity to people is profound, and that education awareness piece is a really important lever to be pulled as we tackle wicked water problems.
The other thing that I want to make sure to touch upon in terms of how water is fun is that, frankly, among all of those various aspects of water that I named, it has a uniting factor. It connects us all and it creates community. And really that is something that helps to build our enthusiasm and appreciation. For example, the Gap Inc. Walk for Water employee engagement campaigns that we've been running, that is really a fun opportunity for teams and cross-functional teams to get together, get outside, and spend time together in that shared purpose for water. And I'll share one more thing, how I know this is so true from a personal experience is that when I was 12 years old, I moved from Maryland across the country to San Diego. And at 12 years old, I was furious, adamant, San Diego, did not want anything to do with it. I wore a big Maryland sweatshirt everywhere I went until
in protest, right?
Yes, in protest, until I realized, hey, wait a minute, San Diego is right next to the beach. And that was pretty amazing. I learned how to surf. I found a community of friends in the high school swimming team and the first all women's water polo team. And really, water is frankly what helped me turn a strange foreign place like San Diego into my new home through this community. And it was through those activities and people that really helped to bring that together for me. And then, one other thing that kind of that circles us back to the opportunity, Will, that you were saying about where Gap Inc. and our brands can go is what we found in communicating and talking about water is that really people care about people. It is that people and community element that helps to connect us. So there's a lot of power there, and there's a lot of opportunity to really build that further.
That move and that protest and that kind of connection with water and the communities around it is almost the spark that put you on this journey to where you are today, you could say. I'm just trying to connect the dots, but it sounds like, yeah, there was that kind of young thrust moving and then being exposed to water shaped the career path. Yeah.
Yes, I have been on a very long water journey.
Well, that passion comes from somewhere, and you just unveiled where. It was that transformative moment in time that got you hooked on water. Not that Maryland doesn't have water, but San Diego's, I don't want to say immersed, but it's, it embraces it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I still am a strong, proud Maryland girl, but have San Diego as a good route.
Tom and I were saying that we should have worn, Gap apparel. Well, clearly you should have worn Gap Maryland apparel.
Yeah.
For the conversation. So next time we'll do that. We'll make sure we're dressed accordingly.
Great stuff. Well, yeah, Lisa, enjoyed kind of hearing about what Gap's doing in India, as well as your time in the World Water Week. I mean, the session was great. And also to hear about the USA partnership and the work you're doing to really make water fun. So let us know when you, sorry to bring up rowing again, Will, let us know when you start back up the rowing, and we'll make the Stream on the Water episode happen. So yeah, I want to thank you for your time and appreciate it as well.
Thank you so much.
Lisa, thanks. And thanks for indulging me on the rowing thing.
Always.
Appreciate it.
Great stuff. All right. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Will.
All right. Bye, folks.